is asking. He said he was in New Orleans for the weekend. His Uber delivery guy saw my Miami shirt and said, "Yo, you guys got to let Carson Beck cook here." That's a pretty broad statement. So let's get to the specifics of it, which is how do we get Carson Beck going when teams are going to play us the way that they've been playing us the last 3 weeks and probably the rest of the ACC play? What are some specific ways that you see that we can get Carson Beck going, or should we just keep protecting him like you've noted and others have noted that we've been doing?
Personally, I'm just giving my opinion here, right? I'm not a coach. I'm not in the room with them. But what would I like to see? I would absolutely like to see them pass to run late. So pass early to run late. If these teams are going to continue to do some of the things that we're talking about as far as they're really flooding the A gaps. And what that means is basically that the middle of portion on either side of the center, right? Something I noted in this game multiple times in the Stanford game is the fact that both of those linebackers were moving forward based on our tendencies repeatedly. And they were also 1 yard further or closer to the line of scrimmage. And that doesn't sound like a lot, that 3 feet. But if you really, watch games and see how many times, a pass just gets over a defender or just gets through a window, that yard can make all of the difference. And you really want to punish teams for having their linebackers 1 yard closer and kind of attacking downhill as often as they are. Couple of ways you can do that. Obviously everyone knows in today's college football world, RPOs are something that we live with, and we have a lot of glance, flat RPOs. Basically, glance is a form of a slant if you think of it that way, and then just flat stretches it horizontally, right? So you've got your run pass option where you've got basically a handoff if you want to run and a play fake if you're going to pass the ball. And then a lot of times what you're going to hit behind that is a glance behind the linebacker. Now, when those linebackers are a step forward, like we talked about there, that opens up that window even more, right? So I would love to see Miami attack with more RPOs early on. I would love to see us with double stacks, right? So that is something that Lashley is a king of, right? And I'll talk about what SMU does and how they're going to attack us with double stacks. But realistically speaking, on film, through this number of games that we've had now, a couple of things I've noticed. The 12 personnel isn't working great. That's, the two running backs on the field at the same time. And also, the two tight ends has not been super effective this year either. And I know Miami loves to run the two tight end packages. They really want to insert that into their run game. I'd love to see us with double slots more, because Tony Johnson, in my opinion, has kind of earned that right to get some more snaps. I don't mean to run that every single play or anything like that, but I definitely believe that you could utilize Tony Johnson and Malachi Tony at the same time more often on the field. You could have a CJ Daniels, Malachi Tony, Tony Johnson package, a little bit smaller than you want to have for a team that runs the offensive type that Miami does, where they have those condensed splits and are running inside as often as they are. But you're seeing them insert Tony, as either a wham or even sometimes as a lead. Tony Johnson seems to have a similar type of mentality where, he's at least competent in, his blocking aggressiveness and effort. And frankly, Lofton has not outperformed them by such an amount in blocking that he's making up for the difference in the passing skill, in my opinion, what I have seen. So that's one way I would love to see them kind of adjust a little bit there. I'd like to see less of that 12 personnel. Those two backs on the field at the same time just hasn't had the efficiency that you'd like to see. And if they are going to run that a little bit more, I think it's time to start employing some of those counters. It's entirely possible they've held them for a game like this, right? You got a road game against a team that played for the title of the conference last year with an excellent. Basically, I think both of their coordinators are excellent. You think of Lashley as their offensive coordinator in reality, right? And then I think their defensive coordinator, Scott Simons, has done a very good job. He impressed me on film when I've watched him. I believe he's been up there for 3 or 4 years now, and they've kind of evolved it each year and gotten a little better with that. Ways like specific, if you're going to get into a little more XO types, I really think you've got some flood and 3-level beaters that you can employ. And that's against cover 3. Typically, you're going to run those to the field side. The field side is the one that has more space. Basically, if you want to kind of like think of field, has more space, boundaries a little more condensed. That's where you're going to really have a bigger corner who can tackle on average.
Look,
you can really kind of like divide. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I sorry. Pause. I had to bring in the man himself, the Shadow Realm, right there in Dallas, Texas, with the
live from the star. Live from the star. I got the indoor facility behind me here, the Cowboys facility. They got it good out here in Texas, man. Looking out the window last night, there was a high school game going on inside of the facility. They have it streaming outside of this big flat screen. I then turn on the TV inside the room. They have a whole nother high school game going on. We got to get it right in Florida, man. It's ridiculous. We have so many of these streaming services. You got to pay for all these streaming services to catch a single game. They got it all over the place here in Texas. I'm loving it out here, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. I may not come back, man. May not come back.
Well, you already look like you're in witness protection, Pete. So maybe you're just going to stay out.
Well, I was going to say the lighting is not great here. It's better than seeing the backside of the room, though.
No, I like this better.
Yeah, we got to work with this today.
So Lance was in the middle of breaking down just kind of different ways to attack. Texas, right, the home of spread football, right, feels like for years, I'm a high school and everything else. So Lance, we interrupted you in the middle of your flow there, but if you remember where you were at, pick it right up because you were rolling.
Yeah,
man.
no worries.
Fans want to hear it.
No worries. Brevity is not my strong suit. I sure do like to use words, so no worries there. You always got to interrupt me and keep me on task, but basically what I was saying is, you divide the seam, right? So you've got your hash, and then their spot drop looks. And what that spot drop basically means is someone dropping out to a spot, right? A lot of times it's going to be an overhang defender who's trying to take away some of that backside glance we talked about in the RPOs, things like that. But if you then, and people aren't going to love this, but if you bring some of those condensed splits against a look like that, right, you can then burst out. And what that does is that stresses those spot droppers, because a lot of times they're also going to be responsible for a flat, one or the other of your spot droppers. If you have two, and if you just have one overhang, a lot of times he's going to be an overhang, and then someone else is going to have to get to the flat, and that stresses those rules quite a bit. What you're hoping to do is get a bust, right? And either have a big play off of that or get someone behind. When you've already got a linebacker 1 yard up based on just the tendencies that Miami's offense has run, and that's what Stanford did. SMU may not. They may have their linebackers back even further. I haven't seen their game plan yet, of course, but those are some of the things that you can do to really stress some of those rules when they're running that cover 3. When they run the cover 1, and let me just kind of first level set with the fact that Simons is really a single high guy. His defense is predicated on single high. And think of like a safety who's at the post, right? If you think of a field goal, they've got the post. And so really that's where all that name comes from, is just the post of the field goal. And so you've got a single high or a post safety in his world most of the time. And you can run several looks out of that, but cover 3, cover 1 are going to be your most common. You can also run quarters, but for the most part, he's running cover 3 about 54% in my research, cover 1, 29%, right? So, that's the vast majority right there. You're already at 83% of the plays are going to be cover 1, cover 3. So you can kind of anticipate their tendencies to be in that defense. So just kind of level set all that. And so you can have those flood 3-level beaters. That's really going to attack whenever you anticipate them in cover 3, right? Based on their tendencies, based on what you've seen on film, down in distance, they run cover 3, against this play often, right? So then you can kind of anticipate that. And then you can run those bunch stacks like I talked about against their cover 1, right? When you anticipate them being in a cover 1 based on tendencies. I really want to kill them with the bunches. I really want to see Miami run more bunch stack type looks. You can run 3x1s, where you kind of think of like they look like a triangle on the field a lot of times with 2 on the line and 1 back. That can be a screen look. You can also run, double moves off of that. You can, hit them with a vertical off of the front man in your 2x1 bunch over there. A lot of times that's going to be like a Josh Moore or a C.J. Daniels type. That's going to be like a lead blocker if you're running a screen look. love that. You can also do a lot of like rubs out of that. Individuals are going to press quite a bit that look because you want to get up and protect against the screen. A lot of times the defense is going to press, so you can really run those rubs for the slot. And guess what? We've got two really good slots. You know, Malachi Toney is one of the best receivers in the country this year, loves to work out of the slot. You can get him open with some of those looks. And then, you know, like always, right, like your bread and butter against that cover one, you want to run the deep overs, right, the post and stack, right, to where you really put that post safety in conflict. Does he kind of attack down to you know, get that deep crosser, the deep over, what they'll call it sometimes as well, or a post? Or does he take the vertical, right, and kind of stay over the top of that, and then that middle of the field opens up? Long-winded way of saying, you know, getting back on track. I really want to see them attack that intermediate area in more of the 10 to 20 yard area than what they have been doing in the past several games, because frankly, it hasn't been super efficient. And I felt like some of the underneath and some of the, when you do see a broken rule, Beck has missed it. So I'd just love to attack the intermediate area a little bit more, because I've seen him be more efficient and thrive in that area just a little bit better. You've got to protect him though, because that's when you're attacking that area is when you can see a higher risk of interceptions.
Lance, just to clarify though, you think that Beck's missed some looks in the intermediate game, or do you want to see them, you know, give him more options in the intermediate game? A little bit of both?
I felt like against Stanford, there were a couple of times in the first half that Beck missed some open receivers because he didn't go through all of his progressions. I felt like he locked into one side of the field and then got to his check down twice. I highlighted it in the article. We kind of ran through the article before you jumped on, Pete, and a couple of times I saw that. One of them in particular was a touchdown, or at the very least, you know, down to the 5 yard line on a 3rd and long. And then I think we actually missed the field goal. So it ended up being a pretty impactful miss. Because Stanford had a bust. They had a bust to the boundary. They had 2 receivers take the vertical, and the out settled down right at the first down marker and didn't have anyone within 20 yards. Beck never looked to that side of the field and took the check down. I just want to make sure that he knows where his outlets are on all of the plays, right, so that he can at least check it before he does check down. And this particular play had no pressure, so it wasn't as though, you know, he had to get rid of the ball or he was going to take a hit. So a couple of times in the first half, I did see that happen. I thought he played pretty well in the second half, though.
Lance, I know we're talking a lot about the, you know, some of the coverages we expect to see, but